All right, we're being recorded.
All right. Are we talking about wokeism today? Or do you have
Let me
another?
get my head. Yeah, we can. Yeah, we can have that conversation. Wokeism. Make sure your camera's clean. Wipe your camera
Oh, it's not. It's got a big fingerprint on
because it's hazy. Yeah,
it. Better?
that's better. Yeah. Now we got to get you some lighting. I need some lighting too, but we got to get you some lighting because
Well, if I maybe if I turn this way, it'll be better. That's what I did last time, so it's not, and I can.
yeah. Can you adjust?
Yeah. Let me.
I don't know. You're because you're backlit. If you could face the light,
That better?
huh?
See if that works better.
Now it's too dark. If you could actually, can you sit on the other side, like facing the window?
Uh,
Not really.
yeah, not really. Be sitting in the middle of the room. Hold on.
Well,
Let
who
me
cares?
here. Hold on. I think I can turn on a different light. Hold on.
Okay.
That better?
That's a little better.
All
All
right.
right.
Well,
Can you
I'll
bring the
work on
camera a little closer to you? Okay, that's really good light.
it.
That's
All right.
pretty good light.
All right.
Okay. Excellent, marvelous, excellent. Okay. First, yeah, let's talk about wokeism, but let's define what we think the term means.
I've been thinking about it. So I think there's a very negative, depending on who you ask, there's a very negative um, connotation around that term. And I don't think I don't think it should have gotten that way. I think the term itself should just mean educated and aware, you know?
Well, and I don't think educated, but I think aware.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you have to be, I don't know. I mean, you could be aware of things that are not facts. So that's why I feel like educated is what it should be. But I think what it has turned into is what you may have described just then, is that it's awareness of what you believe is fact.
So here's what I think the challenge is. Being woke was a street term. you know, it wasn't a political term or a corporate term, or you know what I mean, a business term. It was it was something you would say to somebody like hanging out, you know, because you wanted to know if they were aware of things that are actually happening, not their perception of what's going on in the world around them.
Yeah, I guess I could see that as I
So
mean,
if you're so in we're going to go around along racial lines now. So if you're a black person in America and you hear that Ahmaud Marbury was murdered, right?
yep.
It's not surprising. It's disturbing and it's sad and it's painful, but it's not surprising. You know, the whole black community is like, that never happens. It's like, yeah, that's just Thursday because that shit happens all the time. But people in other communities, not just white people, but people in other communities were aghast and like, how could that happen? Where does that come from? And we're like, what the fuck's wrong with y'all? you know, this is this is something that shouldn't happen, but it is not uncommon. So if you were a black person who was shocked by that, you ain't woke. Like you don't know what's going on.
Okay. I agree with that. I mean, I think it got the term is way broader used now though and I think you probably said that too. You know, it went from a street slang term to a broader use term that now encompasses, you know, many things beyond just the racial divide between black and white
But
or
it doesn't encompass those many things. It means what it's supposed to mean. The fact that you use it in a different in a different connotation doesn't mean it means something different.
I don't know. I kind of disagree as it becomes a more widely accepted terminology. I mean, you know, my personal, you know, experience with it, you know, or my thought around it maybe a little more personal around, you know, when all my kids, you know, leave and have gone away to college, right? And
Yeah,
come back home with new viewpoints and new ideas.
yeah.
And I would say that when that happens, in my experience, 50% of what they come home with that they consider to now be woke or enlightened or whatever is
Aware of.
aware of, at least 50% is either complete bullshit or so far um so far one-sided of a viewpoint that it clouds the reality of the situation. In other words, it may somewhat be factual, but it's without any of the counterpoints. You know, and I think from a perspective of just, you know, not where woke started, where you think of it, but from where it is now, I think that's what it has become to middle America, white dude, whatever you want to, I mean, however you want to say it. I think that is what it has become, not the things that we could all agree on. You know, it's
So, but had what were there terms that you were aware of? Let's take woke out of it. What did you use to describe those situations prior to saying, "Are you woke? You're not woke." You know, wake the fuck up, whatever. What terminology did you use prior to that? And does that terminology no longer exist because woke has now taken its place?
Oh, that's a good question. I don't know. I think it's more about I think what we used to term as, you know, going to find yourself, find who you are, you know, uh spread your wings, those kind of things. I mean, I know that's maybe a little different than woke, but that was never really a term.
What did you
And
used to say before mindset? Like, our last conversation, you said mindset multiple times, but mindset is a term that is relatively new in the zeitgeist.
true.
So,
Understanding, I guess.
yeah, no, it just didn't wind up here. Like, we used something else, and now mindset more encompasses the something else.
Well, and I would definitely say, you know, that you know, Trumplican media, all of that side of things is definitely weaponized the word woke as
No, I agree.
as a marching order to, you know, be unwoke, you know. But I also think that it was very effective in the election to do that, because I think that, you know, with where Trump won a lot of the young college educated males or males in college. Like they really do credit a lot of that for getting him elected. I mean, it was a
Yeah,
huge difference between this election cycle and the last election cycle, how many of those people voted.
yeah,
And my, my feeling is that that was influenced by all of the young ladies that they're standing next to in college that all of a sudden had very different viewpoints than the viewpoints that maybe they were raised with, and not that that's a wrong thing, but I think they found it to be, whatever it was, they found it motivating to go vote for Trump, and I think that's
well,
a
do you think some of the voting for Trump had to do with the fact that there's these young kids that are in college, and they're really starting to see the writing on the wall of what college is literally going to do for them versus what they thought it was going to do for them?
well, I think everybody figures that out when you get to college that
No, yes, but in this time, in this economy, in this space of the world, there's always been get a degree, it'll get you a good job, you'll get ahead, yada, yada, yada. That's happening less in reality, I think, than ever before.
agreed. I wish, I know we're getting off topic a little bit, but I wish I would have encouraged my kids to go follow a trade rather than follow
Get a degree.
yeah, at least my son for sure, and maybe a couple of my daughters. It depends on what you want to do. But unless you're, in college right now, unless you're going to specialize in something, it's
Right.
it, it's hard to say that you get the $100,000 value out of your education, or that the payback time on that is worth the juice is worth the squeeze. But for me, I think the thing that I always keep reminding my kids about their college education is that it's a little bit about what you learned while you were there, but it's more about a couple of other things. It's about that you could go off on your own and not have anybody over your shoulder, make it to class, stick with something for 4 years, get a degree, prove to yourself that you can do it, learn the skills necessary to be self-sufficient and on your own. It's more of a transition period from being a kid to an adult, and there is value in that, and
Yeah.
if
My
family.
kid did all that and didn't go to college.
True. True. I mean, I think there's other ways to do it, you know.
So, and I appreciate that. My thing that I really wanted, I'm thinking about though, is the fact that so many kids are well aware of the cost of college, the burden of the cost of college, the longevity of the cost of college, and the return on investment.
Oh, I mean, I think everybody, that's not a new thing. I was worried about that when I left college too. I mean, I think that's something you always got to be worried about unless you got somebody else paying for it.
No, I understand that. I understand that, but I really think that the the impression of how quickly they would be able to, pay off college at the start was very different than the reality. It's like, the sun is out and it's a beautiful day. I want to get in the pool. Well, you jump in the pool and it's cold as hell.
Yeah.
And your first thought is, let me get out. And then it's, well, now let me sit here and it'll normalize. I'll get used to it. But you do get used to it. But then at the end of the day, when you're getting out of the pool, you realize you just marinated in piss all day. you know, because when you get out and you go out into reality, the thing that you thought would happen doesn't happen, and it doesn't even come close. You know, you went to school for 4 years, you studied hard, you did all the stuff you were supposed to do to be an AP clerk at Hillsborough County Schools.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I don't. I think that's always been the case, though. I don't think that's new or has a you know has a necessarily bearing on the whole woke idea.
So
Because I think
you think people got out of, like, when I was young in the 80s, when people got out of college, they typically got really decent paying jobs. They were middle managers. They had longevity in their careers. If they were smart, they did even better. You know, um, college really was a status, and it gave your career lift.
right, but once all it did was get you the job or get you the interview. I mean, here's Rowan. He's coming in for his job and his interview here.
Hey, Rowan, how you doing? Nice
Uh,
nose, buddy.
but one thing that I think is really different now is that, and part of it I think has to do with COVID. The year that people spent, 2 years that people spent locked up and afraid and whatever. I think that played a role in. I think video games play a role in their people's social ability and ability to get out in the world and all of that. But I'm not necessarily convinced that the reason why. I know part of the reason is there's maybe less jobs and a college education is less desirable than it used to be or whatever it is. But I think the people graduating college are less desirable than than they uh than they used to be. And not that I think number one, there's more of them. A lot more people go to college. You know what I mean? Like you're
Yeah,
flooding the workforce with people as opposed to 20 years ago, and then even 40 years ago is even less. So you're flooding. There's more people entering the workforce that have college degrees than there used to be. But also those people don't have the social skills, the awareness, the in some cases, I like the whole. I mean, I think that's part of what you hope you gain in college, but my kids had roommates that didn't leave the didn't leave their dorm room for 2 years. You know what I mean? They played
yeah,
video games the entire time. Well, what kind of college experience? Why'd you even go? You know what I mean?
yeah.
And then it's in some cases it's the thing about college that I was excited is my kids went to a big school so they could, get behind the school sports and the school spirit. And, I think that's a learning thing too, to get behind an organization, that you can, you know, get brainwashed into, for lack of a better word or whatever,
Yeah, 100%, 100%.
but now they're really resistant to that. They go to school and some of the kids won't embrace the organization that they're a part of, and they have the same, like, they have that, the university that I chose to give my money to is a university that is doing things that are against me, or whatever it is, or against society or whatnot. So they're leaving school with this weird, like, I don't know, like a anti-establishment viewpoint, and I don't know that that's necessarily a new thing either. I just think the woke thing, I think that's the definition that is taking on, is not being aware of what's actually happening, but instead having a disdain for the establishment, or the people, all the other pieces that it takes to, you know, kind of formulate how you see the world. And
Well, I think that makes a bit of sense, but I also think if you look at it from the perspective of the person, they're being they're being exposed to information and people and situations that they probably weren't exposed to in the rest of their life, in their growing up years. So the exposure is going to um, change your thought process. You're now going to be in a room with people that have had family members, shot to death by the police, or you're going to at least be in a room with people who have very visceral opinions about those types of situations, very visceral opinions about sexual assault, very visceral opinions about corporate greed, because they have a life experience that tells them something, informed them about those particular situations that other people didn't have. And now that they understand what going through that situation did for that person, you are now woke. You now have awareness of something you were unaware of before.
Listen, I think all of that's a great thing.
But that's what it's supposed to mean.
But I guess where it gets off kilter is that when in I think oftentimes that awareness is, or that the people telling that story or influencing are not always good actors, are not always, and just because, and I would say, even if they are, just because it's their truth and their reality doesn't make it yours.
That's true. But awareness is not to adoption.
Sorry.
That's okay.
Go back to that. So cut that out.
Awareness is not adoption. And that's not supposed to be. And I think that's one of the challenges with the idea of wokeness. It's supposed to make you aware of something in the world, but you're not supposed to adopt the thought process that brought that person to that situation. You're supposed to understand, not blindly adopt. So, like there are millions of people that are struggling with the Palestinian plight, the plight of Palestine, and whether or not those people deserve to live life without the threat of coercion of death. Coercion, I said that word wrong, or death. And on its face, a lot of people are like, well, we need to abolish the Jewish state. We need to do this. We need to do that. We need to do the other thing. There are hundreds of years, thousands of years of backstory that has to be understood at some level, or at least being willing to be looked at.
Yeah. And I'm going to say something I don't really mean, but if they didn't have such good real estate, it wouldn't be such a big deal.
Oh my God.
They got some nice in there. And that's what, to me, that's what makes all this ongoing for years and years and years and years and years.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. The thing, and it's really not even the real estate, it is the revenue.
Right.
That the real estate could potentially bring, that's really what you're fighting over. And they want to, the idea that the strong man wins all the time, that's just not what's happening. But what I feel like people aren't trying to do, you want to be on the side of the oppressed. And I think you should be on the side of the oppressed. But oppressing the oppressor is not releasing the oppression.
Yeah. I mean, it's always the idea of fighting for those that can't fight for themselves is always a admirable and a thought that almost anybody can get behind.
Right.
Um, you know, I get I guess where I get sideways on, any of the arguments, it's making the minority opinion or the minority yeah, I mean the minority opinion. If you look at, anything that you're looking at, a thing that affects this many people, a juggernaut of things that affects everyone, rather than just solving the problem.
So, but if there is never a goal to solve the problem, if the powers that be never want to actually solve the problem, they just want to discuss the surrounding issues, it becomes a bigger problem.
Agreed.
You know, we all live in a world where we know hurt people hurt people. So let's take a thing that hurts people and then not address it. So just sexual assault on its own, the Me Too movement. The reason it was a movement is because 3 out of 5 women are sexually assaulted in their life. Who are 3 out of 5 women sexually assaulted by? Men. How do we solve that problem? Well, therapy. What? That's not a solution that even should be on the radar. That's not a solution. That doesn't solve the problem. It solves the result.
Yeah, and when you talk about, so here's the thing that I that just kind of dawned on me when you talk about the sexual assault thing is a perfect thing to think about from a man and a woman's perspective.
Yeah.
Because as a man that has never sexually assaulted anyone in my entire life, it is probably my greatest fear in life that, or one of my greatest fears in life, is that someone would say that I did, or worse, that someone would say that my son did and he did not, or or whatever it is. And so I think during that time frame, the whole Me Too movement, that was I wanted every one of those bastards that actually did it, the Harvey Weinsteins and the Kevin Spacey's and the what, hey, whatever, go get those bastards, because they, like Matt Lauer. I mean, you got a button on your desk so that nobody can run for help. I mean, you got a problem. You know what I mean? Like you're not a dude. You're not a good dude.
But that's not the biggest problem.
I agree, but I think the fear that you know like it's just a crime that is very, very hard to prove one way or another.
So
And
I don't think that's true. I think it's hard to prove given the current set of circumstances that we choose to use to prove it.
all I
However,
know,
your
if I was
biggest fear, your biggest fear is being accused of sexually assaulting someone and you didn't do it. My biggest is being sexually assaulted for no reason but the pleasure of another human being who chooses to sexually assault me.
agreed, agreed.
And that's the fear I have for my daughter and my granddaughter and my
I
daughter-in-law.
eh,
So
look, I got
should
the same
your
fears.
fear trump my fear?
No, I mean, I'm not saying it should. I'm just like I would have the same. If one of my daughters told me something like that happened to them, I'd believe them and I would go take care of it. You know what I mean? It'd be the worst thing that could happen because it would affect my life just as bad, if not worse than anyone else's.
Well, I'm in the same boat. I'm like, I
Yeah,
already got my jail cell picked out because
yeah, yeah.
we're
I
gonna
mean,
go.
so I completely understand that from like your fear. Like it's a little bit of a it's a conundrum in some ways. I'm just saying that if I was a young man in the world today, I would have a written contract or a video contract before I went to go, before I did anything with anybody I didn't know well. I would be like, hey, Leslie, we're here tonight. This is my bedroom. We're going to go do some things tonight, and I want to make sure you're good with it. Are you good with this? Okay, good. Because we're about to go do that, and I need you on video saying it's okay. And I'd store that in my little, and if you wouldn't do the video, I wouldn't have nothing to do with you. Like, all right, well, you're not going to, there's going to be no DNA swapping here. We'll see you later. I mean, because unless you know somebody well enough to know you can trust them, that's the only way you could operate in a promiscuous or any kind of manner if you were out doing what you did.
All evidence of the existence of human beings proves that to be untrue.
I don't know
what you mean. It's not the only way you can exist.
Well, no, I mean, if you're going to not be if you're going to be out and be promiscuous like some of us did in college or whatever, you know what I mean? Like, you can't just do
it. No, I mean, people do it every day, and they aren't getting video contracts, and they aren't getting accused.
I'm just saying I would.
I'm not saying you would. I want to know how much time and energy have you spent thinking about how to affect the inadequacies of the male human being so that this becomes less and less and less an issue at hand, so that we can get to the point where 1 in 10 women, 1 in 30 women, 1 in 50 women, so it becomes more of a rarity.
You're going to have a scumbag no matter what. But I also think,
but not 3 out of 5.
Well, I also don't believe 3 out of 5 women have been sexually assaulted. If I'm going to be,
that's where we have a problem.
Yeah, I agree.
That's where we have a problem. You don't believe it. You don't believe it of women you don't know, but you would immediately believe it of women you do know.
That's not true. I just want to hear what your definition of it is. I think if sexual assault is, you were kissing some guy and he reached around and started to, put his hand on the backside of your pants or something, and you said no, and he stopped. Well, I don't think that's sexual assault. You know what I mean? Or whatever it is. I'm just saying, I think there's I think some people, and the way I've heard it described, is setting boundaries is their definition of sexual assault.
So if we could set the sexual assault definition, let's decide in this conversation, the definition is someone choosing to put their hands on you and coerce you into a sexual situation that you obviously and clearly are not interested in.
Well, the term coerce means to convince, right?
Okay, so to demand that you be involved in a sexual situation that you clearly don't want to be involved in.
Well, let me ask you this.
For instance, for me, I think sexual assault is quite easy. If you put your hands on me and I don't want you to put your hands on me, in a way, that is sexual. If I'm walking through a bar and a guy chooses to grab my ass, I think that is a sexual assault.
I don't disagree with that. I think that's ridiculous.
Huh?
I think that's ridiculous. Now, let me ask you this. Here's a worst case scenario. Say I have I'll use a Harvey Weinstein as an example. I'm a powerful movie producer. I have a movie role that is in demand, and I decide that I'm not giving anybody that job unless they sleep with me. Okay.
Yeah.
And I find a willing participant, they know the deal. You can have the job, but we're going to sleep together first, whatever it is. is that, and it's a willing participant. I'm not saying this is right. Don't get me wrong. I don't want to be on camera saying this is right because it is wrong. But I'm just saying it's a willing participant. You made a deal, you know, you decided to do it. And then 10 years later, you regret that decision after you had all the success that the movie role brought and all those things. How do you feel about that?
Here's the deal. Would that woman have slept with you willingly if there was no movie role?
Hell no.
Okay. So that, yeah, that's a sexual assault.
Whoa. Then every ugly rich dude with a hot chick is committing sexual assault right now, because there ain't no way those girls would be with that dude if he didn't have no money. So in your case,
so money is a different. No, money is a different thing.
It's still money.
You're not paying for my rent, or you're not giving me a car, or paying for my dinner.
In kind of a way, he is. In kind of a way, he gave her the job.
No, that is not the same thing. That is not the same thing.
I don't know.
It is not the same thing.
I don't see a compelling difference between the two.
Well, I see a compelling difference between the two, because you are using your power as in your position to compel sexual favors.
They don't have to do it.
If Harvey Weinstein was just some rich guy, some arbitrary rich guy, you couldn't affect my career in any way, shape, or form. And he said, I'll buy you a condo if you sleep with me. And I slept with him and got the condo. That is a contract between two people. You both participated. What I have to do.
But it's still the same thing. I mean, they both participate. But
not the same thing.
Here's the difference that I agree with you in. There's many people out there that could buy you a condo. There's many rich guys that can go buy you a condo. There's very few that could get you the movie job. So you're narrowing your, what he has to offer is something that is maybe more valuable than money, or more valuable than what 99.999% of the people could offer to that person, which is what I think both cases are wrong. You know what I mean? Like I think all of it is wrong, but I don't think that, I don't know. I mean, all of that is a tough decision. And so or not a tough decision, but there's different sides to look at from any of those points of view.
Well, there are definitely
those women that only wanted to be with a dude because of his money, and I think they're scum. I think it makes me sick. You know what I mean? Like it's like I see that and I'm like, I mean, I hope that there's something about them that you like other than the fact that they're rich.
No, I hope so too. I hope so too.
And I like to give people the benefit of the doubt, because otherwise it disgusts me, but it doesn't disgust me that much less than Harvey Weinstein saying, hey, I got a movie role. I own the movie company. If you want to, to me, it's not a lot different. It's a little different, and it's worse, but it's not a huge difference in the world.
Well, I think it's a huge difference because Harvey Weinstein worked for a business. He was an executive in a company. There are rules and laws that protect employees from their employers specifically.
So physically
to mitigate these situations.
Agreed.
Not only did you go against just the law of human nature, but you also circumvented all of those laws and rules.
Right. But physically, I would say this. So women are at a disadvantage to men physically. We would all agree with that, just in biology.
For the most part, that's true.
For the most part, you've got, like physically, there's very few women that could physically get the upper hand on a man in a fight or whatever. I mean, there are some, don't get me wrong, but
right. No, that's why I said for the most part, that's true.
There are some, but one thing that women do have power over men on is sex and all of that. And I think that to answer your question about what do we do to get, more awareness, so so not 3 out of 5 women are sexually assaulted, and men don't think it's okay to grab some woman's ass in a bar, and all of those kind of things. I think there's education that needs to happen on both sides of that. And I think, men, there's no substitute for a strong male role model in their life, for men and women and female role models in their life, whether that's a parent, whether that's somebody else, whatever it is. And the only way you can affect change in almost anything is by the way people are raised, what they're taught, societal norms are, and all those kinds of pieces. If left to go out and figure out your viewpoint and the way you should act all on your own, it's very likely that without a good foundation of what's right and wrong, you will come across somebody doing the wrong thing and be influenced by that person in a way that is not good for you. And
given that definition, just real quick, given that definition, would you say the one situation is woke and the other situation is not?
Yeah, I think that could be a very positive definition of the term woke.
I'm just saying that is the definition of the term woke. The fact that it's been bastardized has nothing to do with the definition of the origination of the word. We've added stuff to try and make it negative where there was no intention for it to be negative.
Agreed. But I'm all for, why don't we just call them, aware and educated? Why does it have
what we used to do before we used woke?
Yeah, but I don't know. I don't care what the terminology is. I love aware and educated people. And if that's your definition of woke, I now have a new appreciation. I love all woke people. Aware and educated people are my favorite.
100%.
They're the people that what I think the problem is with it, Leslie, is probably some of the most unwoke people have claimed woke as what they are.
100%. 100%. 100%. Yeah. Yes, exactly.
Yeah. And so if you hear and it's just like, I was kind of going with the other thing, like the people that are doing the wrong thing are the people that stand out the most. They're the people you could talk about the most. They're the people you see the most. They're the people that garner the most outrage, sometimes the most enthusiasm, sometimes the most attention, whatever it is.
No, it's true. Michael Vick was a great football player. What is he known for?
Well, I have a different view of Michael Vick nowadays, but he had dog fights and he was an idiot and all of that.
The dog fighting thing is the first thing that comes to mind.
That's not what I think of anymore.
So what about Tiger Woods? Let's use him as an example.
I think
what's the first thing that comes to mind?
Great golfer.
Okay. That's for women. That's not the first thing that comes to mind. It used to be.
Yeah. I get that. I mean, Tiger Woods, there's the thing about all of this is that people make mistakes. You know what I mean? Like but when it becomes a pattern, you are your mistakes.
Yes, you are your mistakes.
And I think the maybe in both cases that both of those people, and I don't know them, so I could be wrong, but there's a little bit of a redemption there in both of those cases. And Michael Vick's, I definitely believe in a redemption. I think he didn't know better until he did, and then when he knew better, he did better.
Yeah, I agree with that. I agree with that. But he'll never the in the story in the storyline of his life, he'll never outweigh that negative story. Like the positive will probably never outweigh the negative. No matter what happens in his life, it will always be the dogfight and then.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, it definitely defined his football career and who he was as a person at that time. And it's made his improbable comeback, But one thing about America in general is we root for a comeback, baby. Man, we want some. You could almost do anything, but if
Unless
we,
it's Barack Obama, then we didn't root for a comeback. He got a comeback, but we certainly wasn't rooted for
yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'd root for an Obama comeback, and
it. You
I'm
didn't root for him the first time, Drew.
I voted for Obama the first time.
Okay. I
Yeah,
didn't
I don't
know.
know if I voted for him the second time though. I can't remember, but I definitely voted for him the first time. I was tired of all that bullshit, all the nonsense and everything. But it's all
The whole Michael Vick and Tiger Woods and all those stories, the thing they prove is what you said. The negative gets the attention.
yeah, no,
And and it doesn't die.
yeah, yeah. But I mean, and then it doesn't help that like I think some of the some of the people that were in the forefront of some of the woke ism ended up being like, probably like how the Black Lives Matter organization sort of fell apart and was rampant with fraud and all that kind of stuff. I mean, like the damage that does when people that were the face of a movement wind up being just as bad or just as scummy as the people that they're fighting against, that just sets things backwards, and that's everything that we've ever, everything as citizens that we've tried to overcome. I would say there's something like that has come back around, that you've had
No,
then.
yeah, because people are flawed.
Yeah.
People are flawed. And when you spend a lot of time feeling whether you've literally been pushed down or felt like you've lived in an environment that's pushed you down, like you said, if you haven't had the opportunity to be taught better until you learn, you don't do better.
Yeah. It's like this, what's funny, this is your perspective on things. And this is a story, and I promise I'll bring it back to what we're talking about. But
Okay.
I I grew up a fat, you know what I mean? Like when we sat down at a dinner table, Leslie, there was enough food at that table that if 10 people came over to join us for dinner, we would have enough to feed all the 10 people. Like there was not a portion of food created that you ate and then it was done. Like I ate a portion of food. If I liked that shit, I went and got 2 more portions of the same food. And if I liked that, there was still more to go get. And that's the
Right.
way I grew up. The food, when you cooked, then there was leftovers. And if I happened to be walking by the refrigerator, I'd go grab another piece of that 2 hours later if I wanted, or whatever it was. That's the way I grew up. And I never, and really until I got in high school, a lot of the people around me, it was the same thing. I never thought, I never went over to anybody else's house to eat and saw anything any different. Basically, that was the thing that was the way I was raised about food. And
Yeah.
then I got this girlfriend in high school, and I went over, they invited me over for dinner, so I could meet her parents or whatever. And, they put out the plate, and I got a little piece of chicken like this, and a little thing of mashed potatoes like this, and a little green beans like this, and a little piece of bread. And the whole thing would have sat on one of my like side dish plates, like the whole thing would fit on that,
Yeah.
And I ate the food and I'm like, my grandparents, everybody taught me to be very polite. I'm like, oh, this is delicious. Thank you so much, or whatever. And I'm looking around the table because I'm like, I'm starving. I'm still hungry. I'm looking around the table. There's nothing there, and I'm like, wow, like they just barely
This
made
is
it.
how y'all eat.
I thought they were poor. I thought
Oh
they
my
were.
gosh.
I said, maybe things aren't going so good because they didn't cook very. I mean, man, I felt bad for even coming over because I'm like, because Dad only got that little bit too, I'm like, I mean, he should have got at least the bigger portion,
Piece of
I
cooking,
take
right?
the piece. I'm like, this, these people, they're, I make sure when I take her out to dinner, I pay because, they're going through some tough times, whatever.
Right.
That's the way so I dated this girl for like a year and I became friendly with their parents. Every time every time they invited me over for dinner, and I ate over there all the time, I would run through a drive-through on my way to their house and eat my food because I knew they were going to starve my ass when I got over to their house. There was not going to be enough food. After a year of doing this, I finally worked up the courage to say something to their mom, because they would say stuff to me like we had a good relationship, whatever. And I said, every time I come over here, I eat before I get here because y'all just serve just enough. Like there's no seconds, there's no any of that. And I'm like, it's just weird to me. You know what I mean? Like I don't understand it. Like but I just, I love your food, but I want more of it. I can't. And she goes, Michael, you see how my family is all physically fit and healthy? I looked around. I'm like, yes, I do.
Yeah.
And you see how your family is all has bellies and overweight. I'm not judging, but
Right.
all overweight and unhealthy and got the diabetes and all the different, all the different things. My family doesn't have any of that. So I know you think that I'm the weird one because I feed my family a balanced nutritional meal and I've taught my kids how to moderate and and what is appropriate to eat, but I just need you to be aware it ain't us, it's you.
Right.
You're the and I went home and I'm like, what the hell? She might be right. I looked around. My grandfather's got his syringe, putting his insulin in his gut, and my grandmother's diabetic too. And I'm like, and we're drinking 10 Diet Cokes a day each, and whatever. I mean, but that was the first thing for me that I was like, well, shit, my reality is the messed up one.
All of a
Not
sudden you became aware and educated.
yes, aware and educated of my reality,
Yeah. Yeah. And
that
I think that's the thing that really wokeness was supposed to do or could have had the opportunity to do is to have people look at each other's reality and see what's really happening.
yeah,
So
yeah,
we all become aware and educated. So if sexual assault continues to happen, it's not because we're not aware of it.
I agree. I agree. And I think it's also just about giving people a voice too, to where those kind of, where people aren't afraid to confront things like that. I mean, and I that's probably the thing, just as I know we're kind of wrapping up, but that's the thing that scares me the most is the uh the kids that I spent time around, and I have a lot of experience, you do too, with kids being around your kids. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? And from coaching sports to, I've had experience
Yeah.
to thousands of young people, you know, and also in the job that I do, I have experience with it too. And it's like the maybe it's a topic for the next call, but the desire to just medicate your problems away versus deal with your problems like anxiety and depression and all of those things. I think it has become, you know, as the thing that scares me the most, that in the generation that my kids are in, they're way less equipped, in my opinion, to deal with the adversities of life than my generation was. You know, and I don't know, I think COVID has a role in that. I think a lot of things have play a role in that. But I think that that also is part of the problem with the sexual assault thing and all of that, is that women and men have not are not as equipped with the skills as they should be to defend themselves, to deal with adversity, to deal with someone that, you know, wants to do something with them that they don't want, you know, and how to go about doing that, you know. And I think, you know, the education on both sides of like what that looks like from a young man's point of view and also what that looks like from a young woman's point of view is the only way you really get through this. But you got to have people that have the courage to you know, to stand up for themselves. I mean, hell, one of my kids was afraid to order food at a fast food restaurant until she was 17 years old, you know, and I'm good at this. I think I'm really pushing people forward, you know. But you know, that's you know, I think that's
So,
part of it.
no, I think the challenge of becoming clear about what's happening in life versus the story you're telling yourself. You know, I think most of the stories that we tell ourselves actually show up in reality, and we're unaware that we're creating the thing that is the adversity that we're dealing with.
Yeah. Yeah. But you
Great
know, it's,
topic for our next call.
I agree. I agree. I enjoyed this, Miss Wright.
I enjoyed this, Mr. Hall. So, you guys join us. We're going to have these conversations. You'll find us on YouTube right down the hall.
See you next time.
All right. All right. So, I ended the recording. That's